Brett McMurphy, America's College Football Insider, Action Network HQ, and a great guest that we get whenever we can on this show, 365 Sports with Craig and Paul, David Smoke. Brett, thank you so very much. What was your thought on the BYU Utah post-drama of the game with Mark Harlan? Do you feel like the fine was enough? Was this a reprimand enough? What are your thoughts?
He should have got the death penalty, man. Come on. What are you talking about?
The electric chair.
Yeah, come on, man. All these softies out there. You know what? I mean, I know Mark very well. He used to be the AD at USF. I'm here in Tampa, so I know him well. It's funny. I looked at the reactions from a lot of people, and I saw people saying, wow, I wish our AD would defend us like that for bad calls. I saw other people, disagree and say, yeah, this is a disgrace. How can you do this? You need to be professional. It obviously was very emotional. I expected a fine to come. The money is kind of irrelevant. It's $40,000 for him is it's not going to have any big impact. It's more basically saying as a conference you did something, Ken Niumatalolo, it was issued a public reprimand, ironically the same day. What's funny is Kirby Smart basically, without going into that much detail, said the same thing after the Texas game. The refs tried to steal it from us. It was that same tone. He was not punished, at least publicly, by the SEC. So I really don't have an issue with it. The thing, David, I have a bigger issue with, and I wrote something about this after the Georgia-Texas game, is why everyone on the face of the earth, everyone listening out there, everyone that you have contact with every day is accountable for what they do, except for the officials.
Mm-hmm.
That why are they untouchable? Now, I'm not saying they should go in front of the firing squad. I'm not saying, but why can they not answer questions? I know periodically you get sent a pool reporter and you get an explanation or whatever. And I'm not saying they need, you can't do it every game, then it gets ridiculous. But there's plenty of calls. People see with the technology we have now, you can see a lot of things more clearly than, several years ago. So now we're just seeing a lot more things that we never saw before that brings into question all these things. And again, you're never going to convince the people that believe in conspiracy theories that Miami is not getting every call in the ACC, that BYU is not getting every call in the Big 12. The teams that help the league are going to always supposedly get those calls. So it's a no-win situation. I did notice that I don't know if you knew this, the officials that did the Texas-Georgia game, they did not work the week after that. And then the week after that, the game they did, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it was like the worst game. I think it was Oklahoma-Maine. So they were punished, although not publicly. You had to dig deep, and the SEC didn't announce that by any means. But so I guess there was some repercussions there. Maybe make that stuff public. I don't know. It's, that happens to officials with the basketball. If you fare well, you get to do the NCAA tournament. If not, you're stuck doing the WAC, women's semifinals or whatever.
Brett, do you think a playoff is better with 4 teams from the SEC and 4 teams from the Big Ten, or is it better with 3 of those teams and multiple Group of 5 teams or multiple Big 12 and ACC teams?
What's your definition of better?
Yeah, I guess that is.
No,
a pretty
I'm
broad question.
serious.
Yeah.
No, I mean, are the best teams in the playoff? Is that better, or is it better that there's more teams from more conferences in the playoff that may not be as good? I mean, I think it's very simple. If you want the best teams in, whether we like it or not, the SEC should have 5 or 6 teams in there. And one thing I think is that if the SEC is going to get four in, I think the Big Ten gets 4 in. I think unless BYU runs a table and then loses to Colorado, I think the Big 12 only gets 1. I think the ACC only gets 1. Notre Dame gets in. even with that happening, you can have a couple of 2-loss, maybe 3-loss, depending on what happens in the SEC, 2-loss teams that do not make the playoff. Yet Penn State will get in at 11-1 with the same number of top 25 wins as you and I, 0. And Indiana will get in at 11-1 with the same top 25 wins that we have, 0. Indiana right now has and I've got the same sports source analytics that subscribe to the same service the Flex Committee does as far as strength of schedule ratings. Right now, Alabama has the 7th toughest schedule. Georgia has the 3rd toughest schedule. There's a possibility they may not get in. A&M has the 15th toughest schedule. LSU has the 5th toughest schedule. They're basically considered they have no shot at getting in because they have 3 losses. Indiana, and Kirk Cignetti is my vote for Coach of the Year. Indiana, add all those up, you don't even get to Indiana. Indiana, the 81st easiest schedule. Now that's going to drop a little bit when they play Ohio State. But what I'm getting to is half of the teams in the SEC. I mean, several teams from the Big 12, from the ACC, and the Big 10 could play Indiana's schedule, and they all would go 11-1.
Yep.
So should Indiana be in the playoff because they're 11-1? I mean, they beat the hell out of everybody. They beat everybody they played. We'll see what happens with Ohio State. And so I think because of that, I think this expedites the SEC's thinking about kind of let's take our ball and let's go do our own thing. Because they're looking at it as, we could have 6, 7, 8-way tie with 2 losses, depending on what happens these last few weeks. If you're the SEC and you've got, let's split the difference. Say you have 7 2-loss teams or even 6 2-loss teams. So 2 to 4 of those teams are not getting in the playoffs, while Boise State with 1 loss is getting in. Indiana with 1 loss is getting in. Penn State with 1 loss is getting in. All those teams have no top 25 wins. So why are we beating our brains in with our conference schedules when it's detrimental to our playoff chances? And I think because of that, they will either fight to get more automatic bids to the playoff, which I know everybody fights back on it. I understand why. But from their point of view, and I'm not an SEC honk, but from their point of view, I can understand that. Like, why should Texas play Georgia every year if the loser is going to be penalized and potentially not make the playoff, where they could have played, say, Mississippi State instead, gone 11-1, and then there's no doubt they're in the playoff. So I guess I didn't answer your question, but if better is the best team, then you could even argue to get rid of the committee and go with the old BCS and go with computer ratings, and then put in the best teams whether they won a conference or not. What's funny is the BCS ratings actually have been almost identical to the college football playoff ratings. There's a site on Twitter that shows if the old BCS was still running, what the ratings would be. And it's funny, the committee kind of has the same thinking, but this is going to be fascinating to see what happens. And they've already told us what they think of Indiana and Penn State. They've got them both in the top 8, and they have no top 25 wins.
Brett, Oklahoma State started off 3-0. They're now 3-7. Their 18-year bowl streak has been snapped. I know the last time we talked to you, Gundy had just made some headlines. But from your perspective, just what do you expect moving forward, and what kind of changes do you expect this offseason, and just how surprisingly disappointed are you in how this has gone in 2024?
Yeah, this is obviously a crazy season, something, certainly even non-Oklahoma State, people would be shocked to see. I'm not, my opinion, I don't have any inside information. I want to make that clear because you asked a question, I'll give you my opinion. I think there will be some coaching moves, within the staff. You've kind of seen that around the country with Florida State, with Nebraska, with Florida Atlantic. I think there will be some changes there. I mean, it is the craziest thing that I can think of. But I think, when I talked to you guys before the season and people asked me about, what about Oklahoma State's chances? And I said, well, look, I've got the the battle scars. I've got the scar tissue. When Oklahoma State's expected to do really, really well, they usually don't. And this is a prime example. And I don't know the reason why. Certainly they've had a number of key injuries on defense. They can't stop anybody. Alan Bowman, I think last year, and I'm not trying to be critical of him, but I think last year maybe he played over his head a little bit. And this year I think maybe he's regressed. Been playing a little bit worse than he really is. And so because of that, teams just basically load the box, shut Ollie Gordon down. I thought his numbers would be less than last year, but my God, I didn't expect this much of a drop off. But, look, this stuff happens. You look again, when I talked to you guys in the summer, who do I like in the Big 12? I said, put the names in my hat and pull them out because you'll have a better chance. Nobody picked BYU. Arizona was picked at the top. Kansas was picked in the top 6. Oklahoma State's in the top 6. Utah was the favorite. Now, of course, Cam Rising injuries, but there's 4 in the top 6, and none of those guys are going to go to a bowl game. It's just crazy. Arizona State picked last. They may go to the Alamo Bowl as the Pac-12's top team, with the former Pac-12 alignment stuff. So just a crazy, crazy year. I hope for the conference BYU runs the table and loses to Colorado. Then I think the Big 12 gets 2 in. My projections now, I've got Colorado winning the Big 12. BYU, give BYU credit. They keep winning games. But, my God, the horseshoe's going to fall out at some point. They should have lost to Oklahoma State. They should have lost to Utah. I think Kansas will give them a tough game. Kansas, they've lost 6 games by a total of 1 point. It's crazy. They showed what they can do against Iowa State. But, for Oklahoma State, boy, I never saw this coming. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, wow, how much enjoyment are you taking about Oklahoma, the struggles they're having? I'm like, are you kidding? Have you seen Oklahoma State? I know they stopped the rivalry. I'm trying to promote a Bedlam consolation bowl between a 3-win Oklahoma State team and a 5-win Oklahoma team, and we'll play halfway at Guthrie High School, and maybe we can.
That would be like
a couple of thousand.
Yes, exactly, a couple of thousand. That would be like sticking a ice pick in your ear, watching that one, or maybe your eyeballs.
Two ice picks.
Oh,
yeah, 2 ice picks.
Brett, I can't imagine a season from about December 7th last year to now going in a faster opposite direction than what's happened to Florida State since the playoff committee snub a year ago. Have they made any correct decisions in the last 10 months?
Man, that's so remarkable what has happened. And, obviously, naming teams that let go of coaches. I forgot if I mentioned Florida State, obviously, let go of both coordinators. I think the biggest issue was the quarterback. They missed out on Cam Ward. The number got too high and they pulled out of the running. And look at Miami with Cam Ward, and look at Florida State with DJU. And I think I don't want to put it all on him, but it's just, man, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. And then once they started losing, it's like they started pressing, and then it's all gone south. It is comical though that people that I actually value their opinion and think that they're fairly plugged in will say, hey man, is Norvell, Norvell's on the hot seat, right? I'm like, dude, he freaking went 13-0 last year. He's 1-9. Okay. They're not going to get rid of him. Plus they owe him, the gross national product of 3 third world countries. They're not going to pay that to get rid of a guy. But yeah, he's got to make changes. Gundy's got to make changes. You mentioned the streak for Oklahoma State. This blows my mind. The 2 longest. I'll ask you guys real quick. If you don't know, I'll tell you the answer. Oklahoma State had the 3rd longest streak of consecutive winning seasons at 18. Only 2 schools have current winning streaks, consecutive winning seasons longer than that. Do you know who they are? Top of your head.
Longest winning seasons?
Most consecutive winning seasons, current. Not all time, just current.
Is Boise State in that list?
Boise, very good. Nice. Boise State second with 22. The number one team has never gone to the college football playoff, and that is Wisconsin.
Wow.
So that shows you how hard it is to have this kind of success every single year. Like Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, those guys are like fifth or sixth on the list. So I'm saying that because you look at the dips that Florida State and Oklahoma State have had. You certainly never expect that, but it happens, guys. It's not easy. And especially now with the portal and kids moving all the time, I think we're going to see more of this. I mean, Indiana goes from nothing to the college football playoff. I think this is going to be the norm instead of the exception going forward. And also another thing I think it taught us is just because you have a ton of people back, it doesn't automatically guarantee that you're going to have success. Because Oklahoma State's the poster child for that. And certainly Florida State did not lose enough talent where they go from 13 wins to 1.
Brett, is Mike Gundy untouchable?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he's won 18 consecutive winning seasons. Now, but look, if he goes out and does something crazy that's illegal or, whatever, no, he's not untouchable. But if he just makes some dumb comments and gets pissed off at fans and says some stupid stuff, look, they're not going to, I can't see them getting rid of him for that.
Do you see his exit just being, I'm done with this kind of a thing? Like coaching or ready to just go fishing?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a point earlier in his career where he certainly had opportunities to go to a number of places. Tennessee, Arkansas. I think there was I don't know how far back, so don't ask me. I think Baylor may have reached out to him at some point. I mean, a bunch of schools, and he stayed at Oklahoma State, for various reasons. And then I think now he's realized that this is his last stop. And so, yeah, it's just you get to the point where when is it not fun anymore? It's a personal decision. Financially, he's set. How much longer do you want to keep doing this? That's a decision Kyle Whittingham has to make. Again, total speculation, not reporting. I think this is Whittingham's last season. I know he said he's retiring. They already have the coach in waiting. Just body language, I think this is it. Kirk Ferentz, how much longer does he want to go? I'm not saying they should go. Saban last year decided he had enough. With the transfer portal, with all the different things going on, you're not a coach anymore. You're part babysitter, you're part CEO, and you're part fireman because you try to put out all the fires. And so how much of that stuff do you deal with? How much coaching are you actually doing? And I think ultimately that will determine for a lot of these guys how much longer they want to continue coaching. But yeah, I think for Mike, he's there as long as he wants to stay there. The question, and I don't know the answer to this, is how long is that? Is that 1 more year? Is that 10 more years? I have no idea. I know I believe all of this. He's still got a son. One of his sons, I think, Emporia State. Is that Gavin? Who actually would have started for Oklahoma State if he wouldn't have transferred. And I think his other 2 sons are out of college. So, is that impact his decision at all? I'm not sure.
Last thing, where will BYU, in your opinion, be tonight with the college football standings?
I think they will be number
9?
9 last week.
Yep.
I think they will be 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think they will shuffle them up. I think they're gonna put them in front of the 2 lost teams. I would say, yeah, I think they'll be 7. I think it'll be, and I'm going to tweet this, see how wrong I am. I think it'll be Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State 4, Indy 5, Tennessee 6, BYU 7. I think Alabama and Georgia come in, Ole Miss come in 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, I wonder if sometimes whether it's the College Football Playoff Committee, I know you got to go, or those who vote, who, when they are doing their top 10 and they go down the list and they almost want to just jump in with either Georgia and Alabama. And I get it, man. They've been great, and they're not bad. They've lost a couple of times. But it almost, if they start shaking that maybe neither one of those teams gets inside the top 10, and that can't happen. We can't have that. And yes, you can. I'm not saying one of them or both of them should be, but there's nothing wrong with it. Let them earn it, and not because of what they've done, but what they're doing this year.
I agree with that somewhat, but specifically for Georgia and Alabama, I would disagree. I would agree with you because, again, they both have top 10 strength of schedules that they face. And so they have done the work. Georgia is 2-1 against teams 2-2 against teams in the top 25. Alabama's 2-1 against teams in the top 25. What you describes another SEC team perfectly. And you know what they're ranked? They're ranked right now number 5, and that is Texas. Texas has no top 25 wins. 0. Why are they number 5? I don't know. You tell me. But what if they lose to A&M? And we've got that 6-7 tiebreak in the SEC. And what's the committee going to do with a 10-2 Texas with 0 top 25 wins? I don't know. Do they put them in? Do they not put them in? Do they still think they're better than Indiana or Penn State? Because, they only have one loss. They'll have the same number of top 25 wins. I don't know. Texas, strength of schedule is 35th. It's not great. It's not 81st like Indiana. So, yeah, Smokey, we can go around in circles talking about this, and it basically boils down to what's your definition of who the best teams are. And the other thing that I have problems with, because when I'm sitting here saying, well, these teams, even though they may have more losses, they should be up there. I have a problem with that because I do believe teams you should be penalized for losses. Like you can't, I'm exaggerating, but Alabama could go 8-4, and in the power ratings, they would probably still be a top 10 team based on Vegas, based on who would be favored on a neutral site. So should a team that loses 4 games, shouldn't they be penalized? And I think they should, but the question is, should a team that's lost twice be judged differently than a team that's only lost 1 because they've played a harder schedule? And then the other fly in the ointment, I know, you got to go. This show's not 3 hours long.
It is 3 hours long, actually.
It actually is.
Well, not since I got on, it wasn't. No, what do you do with the conference championship loser? Does that game? I don't know the answer to that. Does that game not count? Does that not hurt your resume? Now you have another loss. Can playing in a conference championship game only benefit you if you win, and if you lose, you're not going to be penalized? You're not going to shuffle down because now you have another loss? What if you get your brains beat in the conference title game? Should you stay where you were? Should you be penalized? If SMU loses to Miami, should they be penalized because they lost in the title game? If, Colorado loses to BYU or BYU loses to Colorado, should they be penalized? Because they won enough games to get to that point. And guys, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. And nobody does because we've never dealt with that before. With 4 teams, it's pretty simple.
Yep.
Last year, Georgia lost in the SEC title game, and everybody's like, oh, they're out of the playoff. Guess what? You know who the number 1 power-rated team was before the bowl games? It was Georgia. But they ranked 5th by the committee. Because why? Because they lost their last game. Is that fair? I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but that's something that we don't know how the committee's going to react to that. And we can, you and I can get on the press conference Tuesday night and ask them, but they're going to give us some, some spin cycle about, well, we judge so we don't know what they're going to do. Again, it's a beauty pageant. Some people may consider it, some people may not, but that's going to make things even trickier.
Yep. Great segment, Brett. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. Brett McMurphy, Action Network HQ.